Welcome to Riding the Trauma Train, or welcome back if we shared this space before. I'm Lydia, your host and fellow passenger in this journey of self-healing, inner strength and personal growth. This podcast is a safe, judgment-free space dedicated to the realities of living with and healing from trauma. Through personal stories and in-depth conversations with special guests, including therapists, healers, practitioners, and fellow survivors, we look at what healing can truly look like in everyday life. We explore realistic healing journeys and share simple, sustainable practices and actionable tools to support your well-being along the way. So grab your ticket, take a seat, and remember you are not on this journey alone. Welcome, Lucy, to Riding the Trauma Train.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. So I'm going to kick this off with, root cause therapy. I have never heard of it, which is ironic because I've been on a healing journey for a number of years, and I was going through different kind of modalities, and found you, root cause therapy. I'm very intrigued, and I'm guessing there may be people that also don't know about it, or if they do, they may not. They may know the name of it, but not actually what it is. So please, can you tell us what root cause therapy is?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a relatively new modality. And really, the way I would describe it is like a combination of lots of other somatic and talk based therapies blended. I think the world of kind of the healing journey tries to separate kind of talking therapy and somatic work as two separate things. And actually, I have a big, strong belief that both are required, right? We're not just our body, we're not just our mind, we're both, right? And the connection between the two is how we integrate and learn experiences and how we move forward. It's why often when we go to an event, like if you went to a Tony Robbins or a seminar or something, you have such a profound experience. And that's because it's a full body experience, right? So mind and body are both present. So some of the limitations around somatic work, so somatic, soma meaning body, is that you are kind of in your body and you're shifting energies. So like in the case of breath work or Reiki, for example, and I am a big fan of both. But what you're not getting there is any kind of conscious or subconscious change or integration. You might be shifting kind of those suppressed unconscious experiences from the body, but you're not learning anything. You're not like shifting the way you think about it. It's not changing a story. It's not shifting a perception. And then on the flip side, you've got talk therapy of many different types, right? Including NLP,
Mhm.
that's focused on how you think and what you know. And, in my experience, most women allow themselves to feel safe through asking how questions and understanding why. And they think that safety will come if they understand how something happens or why something happens. And actually, what you need is both. What you need is to reintegrate the experiences of your past that are still living as if they're true in your nervous system, and to allow your body to feel safe to let go of that experience, but also allow your mind to write a new story, to have a new perspective on an event that happened that you might even have no conscious memory of up until the point that we address it, so that you can actually move forward. And so what root cause therapy does is really blend the two types of therapy to allow that to happen. So in a session, you're working with the body and with the mind. And I think that's why it's so unique and special. Now, to add to that, I think a lot of people get nervous about a lot of somatic kind of concepts because they are very afraid, naturally so, to address, trauma maybe they are aware of, maybe, and most importantly, trauma they're not aware of, right? And I don't know about you and some of your maybe listeners who have been on that trauma healing journey, is that often we have that sensation or feeling that there's something there and we're not sure what it is. And that can be such an overwhelming and terrifying feeling. So what I always love to reassure people about root cause therapy is that root cause therapy is something that is relatively self-led. It's just facilitated by me or a facilitator, right?
Mhm.
So you will never go anywhere you're not ready to go, which sometimes, unfortunately, inside talk therapy, like inside IFS, inside timeline, inside some body based practices, sometimes you can end up going somewhere you're not ready to go because you're not marrying the conscious and the unconscious together. And so, where root cause therapy special is, it's very much led by the person, which means that if they're not ready, they ain't freaking ready, right?
Yeah, it's not going to come out.
No. And if you are ready, my God. So, you're fully awake. This is the other thing. There's a bit of a myth about it that people think they're going to get hypnotized. It's not hypnosis. You're fully awake. You're just being guided on a journey. And I'm having a conversation with your unconscious mind that's allowing us to go to the root cause event of your problem, your belief, your behavior, or your pattern. And why that is so powerful is that we often try to address the symptoms of what's going on for us, or we know what we believe and we know when it happened, but the knowledge isn't changing anything. And we're wondering why we're still going round and round and round.
Yeah.
And that's because what we have to shift is the root cause energy and the root cause experience and see it from a different perspective. And so that's where root cause therapy was really developed from, which was from a blend of lots of modalities, lots of therapeutic experiences. And I'm sure over the next few years, there'll be lots of modalities that come out that offer a very similar thing, maybe called something different.
Yeah.
But really, that's why rather than picking an individual modality, I chose root cause therapy, because really it's about embodying and processing the past so that we can create from the future. So that was a very long winded answer to your question about what is root cause therapy.
No, it actually it does make sense because I don't know if anyone else is, but I've been in a position where I'm kind of all talked out. Like I know what my trauma was. I can't change that trauma. And going through different therapists and saying the same thing over and over, it is that kind of repeated pattern. So, and I've also looked down the Reiki route and a somatic healing route. So I think the combination does sound sensible, I suppose.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense,
Mm,
doesn't it?
yeah, sense, which is quite rare these days.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, most of the clients I work with have been to talk therapy. They're not people who are, healing shy. They're not avoiders, right? And in fact, they're
Mhm.
often actually, really ambitious, like passionate women who are just ready for that next level of life. And so they're actually frustrated with where they are. And
Yeah.
so why root cause therapy is so profound is you have instant transformation. So you don't need the kind of whole, oh, I had a perception shift in therapy and then I had to walk it out and then it took 3 months or the same experience to come back and realize I'd changed. Like it is instant transformation because once that energy is shifted from the body, it's gone. It's gone, right? And those lessons are integrated fast because you're in the unconscious state when we're doing it. So we're not having to try and wedge it down a crack, right? We're there, we're in our bodies, we're fully present. We learn it like being at an event, right? We're in an
Mhm.
event, we're in an experience, we fully experience it, and then we come back out and we're done. And so we don't have to go back to the same experience. Now, my only caveat on that is when people, and I work with a lot of women who've had sexual trauma, so I am going to talk about that now. So for anybody who's incredibly sensitive and you want to just press, pause on this and fast forward 60 seconds, I totally get it. We all need to make sure we're safe when we're talking about these things. But I do work with a lot of women who have had sexual trauma, whether that is whether they're aware of it or not aware of it.
Mhm.
And so, and whether or not that was when they were very, very young or whether that in their adult life. And so, what sometimes happens is there are lots of beliefs connected to the same event, particularly around sexual trauma, because that is one of the biggest things that will impact our foundational safety. And so sometimes we have to revisit the same event in multiple sessions because we're dealing with a different belief system because it was created from the same event. So sometimes you can do an event and clear all the belief systems, but sometimes you do have to revisit the same experience because different belief systems were all created out of that same experience. And so that's the only thing that sometimes can be quite, terrifying is if they've already
Mhm.
been in therapy, they've talked things out, they've shared, they've been very vulnerable, they're actually having to go back and do those things again. But what I like to say to clients in any trauma, the situation, whether it's health anxiety or whether it's in relationships or to do with money, anything where we've got a really negative emotional experience, so guilt, shame, fear, you have a choice. You can either go back into it and experience it fully for a couple of minutes in order to let it go, or you can live the rest of your life like it's still alive inside your nervous system. And that choice is yours. And so this is where sometimes you do have to revisit stuff inside root cause therapy simply because it's the only way to finally get to the root and actually lift it so it's finally gone.
That does make sense. That really does. So I have a question on the back of that then. So if you staying on the theme of sexual trauma, is there a difference between, I know obviously each trauma is different, but with going back to that event, if you were somebody that had experienced that as a child over a longer period of time, would that have to be revisited for longer because it's like more ingrained? Do
No,
you know what I'm trying to
it's
say?
always the root cause event. So it's always
Okay.
the first time. It's either the first
Right.
time or the most significant time. Does that make sense? So
Okay. Yeah, no, that
some people,
does.
it's the last time. When it's been a
Yeah.
chronic scenario, sometimes it's the last time, or sometimes it's the time it was the worst. Because it's the one where the imprint in terms of the belief system or the thought process was created. And remember, if it's young children, and this does happen, like I do birth trauma, I do past life trauma, I can't control
Wow.
the root cause that comes up. If the root cause comes up and it's 3 generations old, that's where we're off, like that's not a me thing, that's a you thing. So I've also done this from a past life perspective. And what I would say is, even if when you're very young or it's in a past life and you don't have a conscious mind like you do in this life to go, I've been, and I personally haven't had this experience. So, but this is what you would kind of, your brain would
Hmm.
say, I've been sexually abused, therefore I'm not worthy, or I've been abused, therefore, I'm a piece of shit, or I've been
Yeah.
abused. And like those kind of things can be created when you're a teen, when you're older, right? Because you're trying to tell a story to make sense of how you feel. But when you're very, very, very young, you don't have a mind like that. So all that happens is those children grow up with sensations and feelings they can't explain. This is why they often don't remember that they've had this kind of trauma until it comes up in some kind of therapy, and they go their whole life with chronic health issues or chronic feelings that they can't explain. They end up with chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia. And it doesn't have to have been sexual violence, just to be super clear. It can be anything as simple as a parent who was emotionally unstable, right? When a child's nervous system feels unsafe, it doesn't have words, right? It doesn't have the ability to understand and intellectualize what's happening. And that's why, if we have had any kind of nervous system trauma at a young age, knowing how and why will change absolutely fuck all. Sorry, I'm a swearer.
No, 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 it's my fine.
And this is why we have to get to the body based part of it in order to release it. So when that happens, we have to go back to the root cause event. Now, that being said, even if you're very small, sometimes you will still have conscious memory and it will appear and you'll be like, I did not remember that. Like,
Yeah.
how did that just come out? And I'm like, this is the power of the mind, right? They've proven we only use a tiny percentage of it, right?
Hmm.
It's in there. But even if you don't remember what happened, and I have lots of experiences with clients where they go and there's nothing physically they can see, but only physical sensations like anxiety or fear or shame. As long as we process those emotions and we receive some gentle guidance, whether it's just you're safe now, you're loved, you're okay, that's enough to clear the
Hmm.
entire experience. And so it's not so much about needing to revisit something if something was chronic, and more about getting to whatever the root cause feeling and root cause experience was. And the word experience is really important there to help provide that differentiation. Does that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. I it does, it really interests me because I feel that that blockages. I think like when you go through some kind of trauma, there's like for me, I know that I have an anger blockage. I know that there is anger deep within my stomach that I cannot get out. And I'm sure that there are so many listeners that can relate to that. Safety, I think, was a really good word that you said because
It's
I
the only
think,
word. It's the
yeah,
foundation to everything.
absolutely. No matter what traumatic situation you've been in, no matter what experience you've had, ultimately, whether you're 2, 10, or 25 or 50 even, you want to feel safe. You want to,
Need
that
to.
is
It's
yeah,
survival.
absolutely. Wow, that's blown me away a little bit.
Like safety, as I said to my clients all the time, like safety is the foundation to all good things. So
Mhm.
clients that come to me and let's say want to do my money course and work on money mindset, I'm like, amazing, but how fucked is your nervous system? Because
Yeah,
you can't manifest with a fried nervous system. Like good luck with that.
yeah,
Clients that
absolutely.
go into work with my husband, on a body transformation because he's a body transformation coach, and they're absolutely fried and stressed and maybe dealing with disordered eating and like symptoms that are showing up. He's like, I don't really know what you want me to do because he's like, your body will not feel safe to lose weight because you're going through so much. And so it's the same thing, whether it's manifesting money, building a successful business, feeling happy, even all of those things. The foundation is a nervous system that can self-regulate. Now, it doesn't mean we have to feel happy all the time. That's not it. But we have to create a space where we can self-regulate. And self-regulate means come back to a safe baseline. And because so many of us don't know what a safe baseline is, we create soothing instead, right? We create comfort instead. And this is why so many of us are reaching outside of ourselves. And I've been there. I've been there with food, with alcohol, with exercise, with dieting, with everything. I used to compete. I've done all these things and I loved that. It was a season of my life. But a big part of that is looking out. I've done it with overachieving, even. A
Mhm.
big part of that is reaching outside of ourselves to feel something inside of ourselves. And the answer to actually creating sustainable business, unbelievable wealth, a body that we absolutely love, a marriage that's happy and thriving, a family that feels nourishing and happy is a foundation of safety, not a foundation of And, this is where, I could get super political now and talk about, the structures and systems of like how finances are set up in the UK and how undersupported we are and how the economic crisis will have a massive impact on the foundations, emotional foundations in a family. Like I could go in, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, it all comes down to the same thing. Safety is the foundation of all good things. And so if we are not creating safety inside our body through doing the work to get to the root cause in whatever approach that methodology takes you, then nothing will grow from there, right? It's like a house on sand. And so this is where burnout comes as a cycle for so many women, why it shows up in perimenopause massively, when the hormones are no longer there, when the adrenals can no longer hold you at overachievement, striving, hustling, performing, improving, when they can no longer hold you there. That's why it feels like everything falls apart. And it's because the foundation of safety was never there in the first place. I don't know about you, Lydia, I don't know how old you are, but, I was raised by what I call the behaviorist parenting generation, where everything was about how good you were and how you achieved and how you performed. And it's no judgment on those parents. They were just doing what they thought was right. And let's face it, they were raised by post-war era parents who were fucking hard as nails. So, they'd been through a war, like
Just
respect.
get on with it. Yeah, absolutely.
So, but we're raised by that generation. There's the only place we ever feel safe is if we're being good girls or if we're performing or we're proving, right? But all of that leads to so much unhappiness, such a lack of authenticity, no real sense of self, because everything is determined by how other people see us. But the sense that we need in order to be authentic, everyone's talking about authenticity. I'm like, babes, being authentic is just actually feeling safe to be yourself, feeling safe to express yourself. We don't have any of those foundations because we weren't fucking taught them. And so we have to create that sense of safety inside of ourselves, because safety is the foundation to all good things.
Love that. That's going to be, that might even be the title of this.
Okay, I'll let you have it. I'll let you take it.
Right. So I just also just going to give a shout out to Josh Blue Fitness, by the way,
Yeah,
because
husband.
we'll drop that in then. It's just amazing, isn't it? As I'm losing train of thought though, because I mentioned Josh. So it's just been competing. You've um, you've hit the nail on the head so many times there. The one thing I would like to talk about is obviously I know you've got so many wonderful workshops on your website. Now I've had a look at them. Obviously, you've got it's the Goddess Code. There's something that's gone out today, which we're actually recording on the 10th of October, which is World Mental Health Day, which everything green, which I thought was
I know, and
amazing.
that was a total accident. I didn't even know it was World Mental Health Day, which is probably a problem, seeing as I'm a therapist. I should probably know that. But do you know what it is? I'm just so in my lane. I'm not
Yeah, I
thinking
love
about what
wearing.
else is doing,
It's only because there's like a little green ribbon at the bottom of my laptop, so I'm guessing that's
That's
what
what
it
that
is.
means. Love it.
So yeah, train of thought has gone off again. So you've got lots of courses, and you've got the root cause therapy.
Ton of free workshops, one of which is burnout, one of which is about histamine. That's a fun thing with women's hormones.
Oh,
I've got tons of them. So I'll send you the link and you can drop the link in the show notes kind of for accessing free
absolutely.
resources.
So my question to you is, with everything that you have developed,
Mhm.
where did this come from? What
Mm.
gave you to the push to kind of start this journey?
I mean, I've been in business for nearly 10 years at this time. So left my corporate job in 2016, but I'd already had my fitness coaching business in 2015. The fitness coaching really, I knew it was never my forever thing, but as an ex-competitor, someone who trained in as a nutritionist and as a fitness coach, I was like, it's maybe not the forever thing, but I'm really passionate about helping and guiding women, and I want to leave my fucking corporate job because I hate it. So I kind of, that was really it. And the original name of my business was Team Superfox, because and not many people know this story, but I had a really, really bad breakup before my first marriage. I had a really long-term relationship and a really bad breakup. And if I think about, if we say I'm talking about mental health day, if I think about the worst point in my mental health journey was probably after we broke up for like the fourth time. I'd just come out of hospital after having toxic shock, and I was like on my knees, like I was a broken person. And it wasn't long after that my friend said to me, listen, just fucking come to America with me. I'm going on like a tour. Just come for like 2 weeks. Like, just get away. Anyway, I walked into a bookshop, Borders, which is like our Waterstones. I walked into a bookshop. I swear to God, the book fell off the shelf in front of me. And the book it's called A Breakup Because It's Broken. And it's written by the same people who wrote He's Just Not That Into You. It's fucking hilarious. It's like, it's such a good book. It's so like, just like the front cover's a tub of ice cream. Do you know what I mean? To be like, it's broken, you're broken. Oh, you're so sad you broke up. It's like, and obviously I'd probably read it again now and think it's maybe not very trauma informed, but it was what I needed. I needed a bit of like, wake up. But why that is important is in that that book, they referred to women as super foxes. And I was like, oh my God, I'm taking that. I'm fucking taking that.
I
So
love.
Team Super, when I knew I was going to build a female coaching team, it was like obvious. Of course, it's going to be called Team Superfox. So anyway, because I was already Lucy Superfox at that point, and it was very much a nickname. It was like Lucy from Team Superfox. It never intended to become my name. It was all very much like, as in, you can Instagram handle like Lucy, like it'd be like having Lucy from Barclays. Do you know what I mean? Like Lucy,
Yeah.
it was that, right? And not plugging any banks, all banks are available, just to be clear. Yeah. So, and that was really where that was born. And that journey, but the one thing I made all my transformation clients do was mindset work. I was like, you cannot work with me. I will not help you prep for a show. I will not help you lose weight unless you do mindset work with me. And really that was where over time, over the years, I felt more called and drawn to that than I did the body transformation, especially as I really not like my relationship with food was changing. I was in a really great place. I no longer needed food that same way. And like, I just really felt like I felt very disingenuous helping girls get ready for a show when I knew that it wasn't a sports based thing. Like I did help a number of people become pro athletes. Some of my proudest clients actually were the ones that never competed and actually just had a beautiful transformation. And, that was amazing. But there were lots, I was attracting the nature of building a business that creates momentum, that has a cool name, where girls get on stage in sparkly bikinis is I was creating a bit of a name for myself. And that was amazing. But what was happening is I was attracting people who weren't necessarily ready for it. They wanted the idea of competing to validate them or to make them feel something. And I couldn't get behind it energetically. And it was at that point I knew that actually I was probably in the wrong space. So I pivoted out over a couple of years season. I talked about I have multiple businesses, multiple income streams. I'm a smart, savvy businesswoman. And I was in a financial position I could kind of take that steady segue. And so in 2021, LucySuperfox.com was born as a completely own entity as like a life coach. And then the kind of root cause therapy evolved in 2024. So really the courses and the programs have been an evolution of the clients I've coached and my own personal journey. And, I touched on the fact I had toxic shock in 2012, 2013. I have been through more stories and more journeys than you count. Ex toxic narcissistic ex. I've been divorced. I've navigated a relationship with binge eating, anorexia, and emotional eating, and now, firmly in 5 years through the other side of all of that. I've had a challenging relationship with alcohol. I had a challenging relationship with drugs, with Class A drugs in my 20s. There's been lots of journeys that I've been on that I document a lot of my podcast. But I think the biggest one is my relationship with shame and my relationship with actually, even though I was a grade A, like I am an overachiever, like I would have been the person that anybody I went to school with, anyone who met me, and even to this day probably goes, most likely to, most
Hmm.
likely to be a millionaire by the time she's 40, most likely to be a top CEO of a FTSE 100. Like I have always been that person. And I've proven that many times I can do that. But there's only so many times your nervous system can do that until you go, is that actually what I want?
Yeah.
Is that actually what makes me happy? And actually, I was chasing success as happiness and success as safety. And so in 2021 is when a lot of it started to unravel. So when it all started to unravel, there were 18 months to 2 years where I was very quiet. Like I said, I was in a financial position. I did not need to work. I'd created that for myself. And what that allowed me to do was just work with the clients I did want to work with that I felt were at the same, I was at a point where I could help them. They weren't where, and the business has really grown and evolved from there. And, one of the biggest journeys that I take all my clients on, I talk you're inside like a course with me, I tell you the truth about how my courses are all built. But really what they are is a step-by-step journey. They're a step-by-step journey. You come in at cycle breaker because you're frustrated with the cycles that you're creating and you think 21-day challenge, that's it. That opens you up to realizing there's trauma to look at
Hmm.
and the fact that you maybe need to go on a deep healing journey. And that opens you up to the becoming program and or root cause therapy. And then you come out the other side of that and you're ready to manifest. You're ready to create from scratch. Maybe you want to build your own business. The goddess code is there for that aligned business, aligned love. You come out the other side of goddess code and you're like, you've built something great. It's foundational. It's happening. You're like, I'm ready to go to 6 figures. The 6-week shift, which is the 6-figure accelerator, is your right. So I've built a journey through my programs. It's a journey I've walked out 3 times.
It's amazing.
So that is really where they've come from, is a combination of both my trained and qualified experience, but more importantly, my lived experience and
Hmm.
what it's like to be a woman in her late 30s in 2025, having walked out some of the things we've talked about, healing trauma, processing past wounds, being raised in a performance and behaviorist generation, and knowing that, and actually after doing all that work, knowing that this is absolutely the thing I was always supposed to be doing. Does that answer your question?
Yes. And it's really enlightening because I think everybody that's on their own journey feels like they they get to one point and then they stop. Whereas, like you said, on that goddess code, you've created each step because it is a journey, and the next step will get you to the next step. And that is literally why I started riding the trauma train, because any type of trauma, like you're on a train journey. One day can be smooth sailing and you're off. Next day you are literally have to change, get on a bus. You're going up like there's so many different
And we're never done. Like life is never done. There are no real destinations. Like there, and also want to preface that by saying you won't be in a healing season forever. And this is why looking at your life in a sense of seasonality, or like as Taylor would say, in eras, like is so fucking powerful, because what that allows you to do is surrender into the season that you're in. Like we don't want a new mom to be in the season of trying to get back to work. We want her to be in the
nah,
season of raising and nurturing a child and loving on herself, right? It's the same thing with us. So if we're in a season of growth, it's a big season, it's fast paced, it's high energy. If we're in a season of healing, it's slowing down, it's nurturing, it's self preservation, it's protection. And actually, I think, like I said, we've lived in such a linear concept of life. Nothing is linear. And in fact, everything actually goes in cycles and circles. So you'll revisit the same lesson over and over until you have physically learned it. Trust me, I've repeated some things and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. We're back here again. Right. But again, this is where that clicheist quote ever comes in from Rumi that's overused, which is the wound is where the light enters you. Had I not had to revisit some of my traumas, some of my cycles, some of my patterns, I would not have the life I have today. I wouldn't have the business I have. I wouldn't have the husband I have. I wouldn't have any of it, because I would not have been called to heal the things that were my most painful experiences and then learn through them, grow through them, and then teach them, you know?
love that. That's so. How can somebody is listening to this and they're thinking, do you know what? I really need to work with Lucy. How can they contact?
I mean, I always think the best thing to do is one, get a sense if you like me. And, you know, you might listen to this and like the idea of the things that I say, but it's really important that my clients like me. It's why I do, especially for root cause therapy, I say that you have to do a discovery call with me, because it's really important to me that one, you are ready. And there's the idea of being ready and actually being ready. And two, it's most important for me that you like me, because if you don't like me, and I don't mean you think I'm cool, I mean you like me you're like, oh, I really like her. I like the way she says things. I like the way, it's not going to work, right? And
Yeah,
the whole thing around therapy is that this is a two-way street. This is an investment, right? You're investing in me, I'm investing in you. And so if you don't like and trust me, one, your unconscious mind won't let me in root cause therapy anyway. But two, it's not going to work because you're not going to listen to what I say. And like, it's very easy for me to tell on a discovery call whether somebody's actually ready. Now, if you're like, oh, I like the way you say things and I want to learn from you, then obviously my courses you can purchase without having a one-to-one element. You don't necessarily have to work with me one-to-one. In fact, I will run out of space eventually. But yeah, just everything's on my website. But if you want to, I will give you my discovery call link. That is not on my website. That is nice and hidden.
amazing.
Because otherwise, you know, all these salespeople would use it to book in sales calls in my diary. But what I would say is, you know, if root cause therapy is the thing that, you know, has resonated most today, you can get that by going to lucysuperfox.com/RCT. And on that page is links to more about it, a discovery call link, how it works. You can that links to prices, all that jazz. So from a root cause therapy perspective, it's all on one page.
That's amazing. Is there any other? I know you've got the goddess code and you've got lots of different workshops, mean treatment. Is there any other pathway or modality that you use on your clients?
Oh God, yeah, loads. So really it's all about the client. And that's why I don't really have a prescriptive approach. So what I often find is that the clients who come inside root cause therapy, they love the root cause therapy, but they are also highly intelligent, ambitious women, and they need to talk things through. And so we don't just spend the whole session in the therapy, right? Like a lot of it is contextual either side and reframing and having perception. So I would say I very much use a traditional kind of life coaching approach to a lot of it. I am very challenging. Obviously, I'm a trauma informed coach, so I'm very sensitive, but I am very challenging. I'm not a, you know, my job isn't to placate you or be a peacekeeper. My job is to challenge you and say, but what are you making that mean? Or Okay, so what's the reason for that? Okay, what are you gaining from that? So very challenging with lots of reflective work. And then with quite a lot of clients where maybe the brain becomes quite overwhelmed. So particularly with clients who have ADHD, I'm ADHD. So with clients who have ADHD, particularly feel very overwhelmed, and fun side fact for you there, root cause therapy can be very powerful for people with ADHD because a lot of the symptoms of ADHD are very similar to PTSD. And so actually creating regulation, and I have some very strong opinions about ADHD that are mirrored in what Dr. Gabor Mate talks about, that ADHD is a big result of attachment trauma, which simply means how connected we were to our caregivers and that we would tune out to look for connection. We tune out into food, television, scrolling, money, success, whatever, and we're not tuned in. And so tuning in and self-regulating through something like root cause therapy and somatic work create the same result. So you will also find regulating your ADHD will happen through regulating your nervous system. They are one and the same. But to finish my sentence, which was often with ADHD clients, we'll also do some EFT, so some tapping. So to help them focus on the future forward things rather than necessarily always being about healing the past. Okay, what are we taking from that and learning from that? But this is where inside my courses and programs, and I do recommend them to clients who are, let's say, have done the kind of the deep work in root cause therapy and they're ready for more progressive work, is normally there's a program that suits where they are, because I wouldn't have attracted them unless I could help them, right? So there's usually a program that gives them that progressive pace, that sense of direction, that sense of accountability that they can work through, that's moving them on that journey. And within that, there's a ton of different modalities that are applied depending on the course. So yeah, sorry, I took a long-winded sidebar there, but yeah.
No, that's basically it's individual. So for every
Totally.
person that comes in, because as we know, no trauma is the same, no event is the same. Now, even if two people have been through, say, physical abuse as a child or a sexual assault as an adult, the label of what that was would be the same. However, their experience of it would still be
Totally
different.
different. Totally different.
So,
Create different belief systems, different bodies. This is the thing, right? And this is why trauma is not just a list of events, right?
mm,
Trauma is simply how safe we felt within an experience. The example I always use is two people can be in a car bump, right? Somebody bumps your bumper, there's two of you in the car, right? One person never gets in a car again, the other person gets back in the car 10 minutes later.
yeah,
It's all about how safe you felt within the event. So trauma isn't, oh, I don't have this long list of things, so therefore I don't have trauma. That's not trauma. Trauma is simply an imprint in your body of unsafety, or where an energy like a shame, a guilt, a fear, an energy that's not supportive is living as if it's true because of a very powerful experience. So when you kind of reframe what trauma is, right? Sometimes a lot more people go, fuck, I've got trauma. Like I would have told you, hands down, I had a perfect childhood. Hands fucking down every time. I'd have been like, I'm not here. I said to my therapist, I remember going to therapy for like the second season, I don't know, in 2018, I think. And I remember being like, I'm not here about that. I'm here about the fact I've just got divorced. I'm here about that. And she's like, yeah, so about that. She's like, well, what about your I'm like, no, I'm not talking about my parents. I'm like, and I fought it so, I mean, it took me 2 years to get me to talk about my childhood, right? But like, because I was like, it's not about that, because I was a fixer. I was a know the how, know the why, and let's fucking go, right? But actually, what was actually happening was I needed to, that was just my path of least resistance that allowed me to feel safe to unravel, right? And when we got to the root of it, ultimately, I'd never felt good enough. I'd never felt safe. And my parents celebrated achievement. My parents loved me very much. And I didn't have that long list of what's called big T trauma. I didn't have any of them, right? From my childhood. That being said, it didn't affect, it didn't matter. I'd still grown through my whole life feeling very unsafe, that my worth was conditional, feeling the constant pressure, rolling anxiety in my chest that I thought was just like, being an adrenaline junkie, right? And so this is where it's not a list of things that did or didn't happen to you. It's how safe you feel inside life. Like so many women are misdiagnosed with anxiety and depression when it's a nervous system in dysregulation.
yeah,
So many women are
100%.
living with chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, IBS that are just collections of symptoms. They are not medical conditions. They do not have a gene expression, right? They have mitochondrial downregulation, which simply means energy in the cells can't convert because the body is living in a chronic state of stress.
Yeah, they're in flight or fight
Yeah. Or
constantly.
freeze, right? And
Yeah,
freeze is what I
yeah,
see more with clients, is they are actually in that freeze mode. And so actually with these three things, until you're actually able to remove the root cause of what's creating the freeze, the fight, or the flight, you can do all the meds. You can do all the things. Nothing will change. And so this is where it's so tricky, because knowing that I've been somebody who's been through seasons of anxiety, been through seasons of being incredibly low mood disordered, I'd say that. And I've been through seasons where, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia at 18. I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome after my toxic shock. I no longer attach those labels to myself. I no longer feel that way. I had IBS for a long time. Turns out I didn't. I was just really anxious and it presented in my gut. And so, like, all these things, a lot of them are simply based on a body and a nervous system that doesn't feel safe. And if we can create that safety foundation, safety is the foundation to all good things, including a banging body, a healthy mind, feeling good, feeling connected to life as well. That's the biggest thing.
Hmm.
Many women right now are feeling so disconnected from life, disconnected from their purpose, their direction. That is simply because they don't feel safe to be in their own body.
Yeah, I literally, when you said that, the one thing that came to my mind was a hot air balloon. I don't know why, but I think when it's like being in a hot air balloon, you've got all the air inside it, all the strings attached to the basket, but you're not quite hitting the ground. That's
Yeah.
I don't know why that came
Because
into
there's
my
no
head.
foundation. There's
Yeah,
no
it's not.
foundation. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's amazing. So many people will be able to get something from learning about their nervous system.
Oh my God, absolutely. And you know what? The burnout workshop is probably the best one for that, because that, even if you're not burnt out, I've sent it to lots of clients who aren't burnt out because I'm like, the context we give around how burnout is not what you think it is.
Hmm.
And so I think, that is at lucysuperfox.com/burnout. So nice and easy.
I'm going to have a look at that after this.
Yeah. It's it's not necessarily about, you don't have to be burnt out to watch it, but we really dive into the nervous system and like really how that impacts everything. And I think once people start to grasp that, they start to look at their life very differently, thinking, okay, so if actually I felt like, if so I can't change this situation, I can't change my
Hmm.
boss or whatever, but if I felt safe anyway, how would that change? And then what we start to see is them realize how different life would be if they felt safe to be themselves. And that's what really opens them up to the healing journey.
Oh, I love that. Amazing. Gosh, so much to talk about. So, and to think with what one of the first ever episode I'd listened to on your podcast was, I've written it down, redefining yourself after trauma. So I would recommend people go and take a look at that one, because I think when you have been through a trauma and you do go on a healing journey, it's really difficult to kind of, I guess, unless you've done this root cause therapy, because it's difficult to recognize who you are without that trauma.
Totally. And also, it's terrifying to leave behind if you don't know who you are.
Hmm. It's I can't remember where I saw it, but I think someone said it's not the chaos of, I might actually be just making this up. It's not the chaos of the trauma. It's the peace that comes after it. You don't know how to navigate, because you're so used to being inside yourself and inside that trauma, that how do you navigate something that you don't know yet?
Exactly. And you know what? The biggest, great example of this is toxic relationships. Toxic friendships is a good one. You're so used to the drama and the up and the down and the chaos. And if it's not your life now, you can remember a boyfriend or a girlfriend where it happened, right? And it's
Or
always a
even a
drama.
friend.
Yeah. And you're always like, it's up and down and you're arguing and then you're getting on and then you're gossiping and then you're bitching and whatever. And then you find this friend who's just like chill. And there's just like, nothing's a problem. And they're just like, they like you just because they like you. And it doesn't matter what's happening in your life. They just want to hang around you anyway, not because they need to, because they're cool on their own. And you suddenly are like, what's wrong with them? You're like
Where's your drama?
when I met Josh, I was like, why don't we argue? Why are you not disagreeing with me when I'm saying that he's the most chilled fucking guy ever? And he's the most regulated guy. See, he's regulated. He
Yeah.
uses training to really help him regulate his nervous system. He loves training. And so like, I would be like saying crazy things, especially in the first year we got together. I was newly divorced. I was fucking losing my head a bit. And I would be saying things. I'm like, oh, I just don't know if I want to be in a relationship. And he'd be like, okay, we'll talk about it tomorrow in the morning. In the morning, I'd be like, sorry. And he's like, I know. Like, and so like having somebody who can hold space for you in the chaos, right? This is where therapists are fucking gold. Whatever therapist that is, root cause therapist, conventional therapist, psychotherapist, breathwork therapist, it doesn't matter. Having somebody hold space for you, especially if you're a mom, especially if you have a career commitment, especially if you have a business, you are holding space for clients, for customers, for your family. Who is holding space for you?
Hmm.
Because actually, one of the biggest first steps to healing is feeling seen and heard. And so if nobody is seeing you and hearing you as you truly are, you're never going to change and move either. And so that safety that you're talking about, feeling safe in the new identity, never comes for a lot of people because everybody's seeing you as you are and they want you to stay the same for their predictability in their life. And this is where a therapist just sees your potential. Your
Yeah.
therapist's job is to look at you from an objective point of view and go, oh, right, so who are you without all these things? Okay, cool, I can see it for you. And to sometimes, depending on the therapy type, hold you accountable to that. And sometimes just hold space for you to figure that out on your own. But without that, that's where the gap is. It doesn't mean you can't do a lot of nervous system work self-paced. You absolutely can. I did. I recommend it. I'm not a keep clients kind of gal. I'm like, come in, graduate, go have a season, come back, be like, can do the next thing. Like it's not designed as a keep you. I have no desire to do that. But I think actually what happens so much, we get so attached to the old identities, the old stories, the old narratives, and the older we are, the harder it gets. That, to your point, it's very difficult to figure out what's on the other side. And this is where a therapist can be that perfect gap filler to help hold space for the future version of you so that you can feel and see like it's actually possible.
Yeah, I love that. It's like the bridge from
Yeah.
not even the old you, because it's very much part of you, but it's actually the bridge from
Next you.
the the next you. Absolutely. And I think it's really important, especially when you do want to grow, you do want to heal, you have to get over that bridge, because otherwise you will be stuck. And I think that's what your root cause therapy does. It breaks those patterns of stuckness. And stuckness, I didn't that might not be a word.
I'm all for making up words, babe.
Yeah.
I said yesterday, unmanipulatable. That's not a word, but I
I
love
like
it.
that one.
I'm here for it.
Yeah. That disconnection. Now I know through some of, I know you call them seasons, which I absolutely love, by the way. Through some of my seasons of healing, I've had moments of complete disconnect. Now I'm a
Yeah.
mother of two little ones, and when you know you're in that moment, it is heartbreaking, because it's not your moment. Your moment's come from somewhere else, and you don't want to put that onto your children. So it's a really big deal. I think everything that you've said today, and all the information that you have got, especially for women, especially for women who have been through traumatic experiences, it is of maybe of just life, being busy,
Life is fucking
being
hard sometimes.
it is. Like one day, they say, I'm not gonna muck this up, but they say we all have the same 24 hours. Like, it's just 24 hours isn't 24 hours anymore. It's literally so much. We cram so much into a small space of
But then we're not
each
living.
calendar. Yeah, exactly.
We're constantly in survival. And so we're perpetuating this survival loop of fight, flight, freeze because we don't have enough space in our day because of the amount of money in our bank account or the fact we've got to go back to work with kids because there's an economic crisis and like all these things. And this is where the only way to really create more room for yourself is create space inside yourself. And that's a
Hmm.
very therapist-y thing to say. But what I mean is, in order for you to create anything else new outside of your life, you have to start with feeling like there's room in here. And if it's full of anxiety and stress and pressure and bullshit stories, it won't matter what you change outside your life. Because also, you'll have to sit with all that on your own,
Yeah.
get rid of stuff on the outside of your life. And so, actually, the answer is to go within to create space so that you can then create outside of your life, whether it's more money or childcare or a bigger business or whatever it is, right? Like,
Yeah.
simply because everything that's on the outside of our life is a direct representation of what we believe, what we know, and what we feel. Direct. It's not accidental. Nothing is accidental. We don't live in that kind of universe, I'm afraid. We could get super metaphysical now, but ultimately, we live in a universe where it is only based on attraction. This is why I say it's very rare that I have clients that come to me that I can't help because they wouldn't be drawn to me in the first place.
No, absolutely. Amazing. Okay. Is there anything, this is definitely putting you on the spot now. Is there anything that you could do? Maybe a tapping technique or something that somebody could take away from this episode? Sorry, I
It's a
told you it was on
tricky.
the
No, no,
spot.
it's a good put you on the spot. The thing with tapping is you kind of the foundation to tapping, right? Safety is the foundation to all good things, is you have to feel safe enough to do the tapping. And what happens a lot is we try to bypass with tapping. So I'm feeling really anxious, and what I'll do is I'll bypass how I really feel because I'll use a tapping modality to get me out of anxiety. And that's not a bad thing, right? But if we are always bypassing how we really feel, we're never actually allowing those feelings to be fully felt. And then we're actually suppressing them and creating more trauma.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in if there's something you want to do for yourself in order to move yourself forward, it would be to keep a feelings diary of
Okay.
how you actually feel. And this can be quite confronting and quite overwhelming. And so I'd say take your time with it once a day and then start with twice a day. But actually getting real about how you really feel about things is the first step to creating change and transformation. Because you can like the idea of change, you can have an idea about what you want to do in your business or where you want your body to go, whatever. But if actually you think this or you want this, but you're feeling really anxious about it, what's most important is how you feel about it, not what you think about it.
Yeah. It's not
And
going
so,
to happen, is it?
no, it's not going to happen. And also because even if it does happen, it's not actually what you wanted. What you wanted was how you felt, right?
Yeah.
So until you start to bring enough self-awareness to how you really feel, because most of us are bypassing, I wouldn't apply any techniques. I would actually just apply radical, massive self-awareness. Because if you can build that level of self-awareness, every other therapeutic technique or modality you put on top will be heavily effective. Simply because you have enough self-awareness to process that. Most people are living so like this in their blind spot, day to day, next, that they don't have any self-awareness. And so if you were to throw yourself into the throes of something, a breathwork technique, EFT, you'd actually might be bypassing.
Yeah.
And so actually that's not going to be a long-term solution. So if you're already at radical self-awareness, amazing, dive yourself into therapeutic techniques or somatic practices. If you're like, oh, this has landed and poked me and resonated, right? And resonance, remember, is just a frequency of, so when people get triggered, they think that that's someone else's problem. I'm like, trigger is just a sign that's something for you to look at. If you're triggered by something, it means there's a resonant frequency. There is a frequency within you that matches that thing. So if you're triggered by something that someone said or done, there is a part of you, I'm not saying the whole of you, a part of you that either is that thing, resonates with that thing, believes there's truth in that thing, or that thing has meant something about you. So that's level of self-awareness to go, interesting, that triggered me, curious. And to try and approach it from the perspective of curiosity rather than the perspective of judgment. That's the hard thing. We're also judgmental of ourselves, right? But that would be actually my first piece of advice, would just be to build that radical self-awareness through the lens of curiosity.
I love that. That is an amazing tip. And I'm sure, well, one, it's free. You don't need to go and
No,
pay
it's
any
free, totally free. Get yourself a bougie little journal from the supermarket.
Oh, I love a new notebook.
I don't know anyone who doesn't love a new notebook.
No.
School thing. Back to school in September.
Yeah.
Get yourself a new notebook.
Yeah, that's amazing. I am very, very grateful for you coming on today.
So welcome.
And I've learned a lot myself. And I'm also going to have a little look at the burnout, because I'm sure, even as a mother, as somebody who's got a job and does this, I am going to have a little look and see
Yeah,
how I
honestly,
can implement it.
I would never have said I was burnt out. I would have said I was just like perimenopausal. And actually, turns out I was just absolutely fucked. So, and I needed to spend 18 months putting my life back together. And actually, thank God I did, because what I have now is 100 times better than what I had before, even
I
if I
love
couldn't
that.
see it at the time,
Yeah, I get that. Honestly, I can totally relate to that. So everybody has resonated with this, then obviously go over to lucysuperfox.com.
Yep.
All right. Awesome.
LucySuperfox.com/RCT. I'm Lucy Superfox everywhere, basically.
Oh, amazing. And I love the name Superfox.
You know where it comes from now. There you go.
I do. That's going to be one of my questions, but obviously I didn't need to ask you it. And then if you've got any questions for me, or if you'd like to tell me if there's anything you'd like to hear on the podcast, it's at Riding the Trauma Train on Instagram, or Riding the Trauma Train podcast at gmail.com. So thank you again, Lucy, for joining us today.
Welcome.
I really appreciate it. And we'll let you know when we launch.
Fabulous.
Thank you so much for joining me today on Riding the Trauma Train. I'm Lydia, and I feel privileged to share this space with you. No matter where you are on this train right now, whether it's in survival mode, slowly finding your feet in recovery, or maybe it's somewhere in between, remember, you are not alone in what you're feeling, and you do not have to travel this journey by yourself. So if you'd like to continue traveling together, please follow Riding the Trauma Train wherever you're listening, so you can join us at the next stop. Until next time, take care.